Chapter 3. The Cardinal and the Hosier. Poor Gringoire. His worst fears were realized. The Cardinal's entrance threw the audience into commotion. All eyes turned toward the gallery. Nothing could be heard except the words, "The Cardinal! The Cardinal!" repeated on all sides. The Cardinal paused for a moment on the threshold of the gallery. The tumult redoubled as he cast a rather indifferent glance over the audience. He was, to be sure, an extremely distinguished personage, the sight of whom was easily worth as much as any play. He was a handsome man, and he had a fine red robe which he wore very gracefully. He greeted the people with a lofty smile, and walked slowly to his chair, looking as though his mind were occupied elsewhere. His staff of bishops and abbeys followed him into the gallery, which increased the spectators' curiosity. As for the students, they swore it was their day, the festival of fools, an orgy and saturnalia of clerks and scholars. There was no outrage which was not permitted on that day. Was it not the least they could do to curse a little in the name of God on such a fine day and in the presence of eminent churchmen? They made good use of their license. Above the general uproar rose a chorus of horrible blasphemies from the clerks and students. But the Cardinal's expression showed that he was preoccupied with something else, namely the Flemish ambassadors, who arrived in the gallery at almost the same time he did. It was hard for him, Charles de Bourbon, a cardinal, a Frenchman, and a connoisseur of good living, to be obliged to welcome a party of ordinary Flemish burgomasters who were given to drinking beer, and in public too. It was one of the most disagreeable tasks he had ever performed to please the king. Yet when the ushers announced the ambassadors, he turned toward the door with the most gracious manner possible, for he had studied his part well. It is needless to add that the entire audience did likewise. While the Cardinal and the leaders of the Flemish delegation were exchanging bows and salutations, a tall, broad-shouldered man stepped into the entrance of the gallery. His felt hat and leather jacket were glaringly conspicuous amid all the velvet and silk which surrounded him. Assuming that he was some groom who had wandered into the wrong place, the usher stopped him. "No admittance here, my friend." The man in the leather jacket pushed him aside with his shoulder. "What is wrong with you, fool?" he exclaimed in a loud voice which instantly drew the attention of the whole audience. "Can't you see I am part of the delegation?" "Your name?" asked the usher. "Jacques Cardinal." "Your title?" "Hosier at the sign of the Three Chains in Ghent." The usher was staggered. It was hard enough to have to announce burgomasters, but a Hosier? That was going too far. The Cardinal, hoping to smooth out the difficulty, said to the usher, "Announce Master Jacques Cardinal, clerk to the burgomasters of the city of Ghent." This was a mistake, for Cardinal overheard the Cardinal's instructions. "No, by God!" he thundered. "Jacques Cardinal, Hosier. Do you understand, usher? No more, no less. There's nothing wrong with the title of Hosier, by God." Laughter and cheers rang out from all over the hall. Cardinal was a man of the people, and there was an immediate spark of communication between him and the audience. His haughty outburst in the face of a group of noblemen stirred in those plebeian breasts a certain feeling of dignity which was still vague and indistinct in the 15th century. This Hosier, who had just defied a cardinal, was their equal. An extremely satisfying reflection to those poor devils who were accustomed to paying respect and obedience to the servants of the sergeants of the bailiff of the abbot of Saint Genevieve, the cardinal's train-bearer. From the moment the cardinal entered, Pierre Gringoire had not ceased his valiant efforts to save his prologue. At first, he had urged his actors to speak louder. Then, seeing that no one was listening to him, he had ordered them to stop until the calm was restored. He now bade them begin again, and hoped that at least the remaining part of his masterpiece would be listened to. It was not long before this hope was disappointed as bitterly as the rest. He had not noticed that the gallery was far from full when the actors resumed their parts. New members of the delegation continued to enter, and the intermittent shouts of the ushers announcing their names and titles disrupted the prologue in a way that was unbearable to the author. The new arrivals, with their varied names, faces, and costumes, were a continuous diversion to the audience. No one was listening to or looking at the poor forsaken play. All around him, Gringoire saw nothing but profiles. And to think that a short while before, these same people had been so impatient to see his play that they were on the point of rebelling against the bailiff of the palace and hanging his sergeants. What would he not have given for a return of that delicious moment? The usher's brutal monologue ceased at last. Gringoire began to breathe again, and the actors continued bravely. But suddenly, Jacques Cardinal stood up from his seat in the gallery, and Gringoire was horrified to hear him make the following speech to the unanimously attentive spectators. "Citizens of Paris, I don't know what the devil is going on here. Down there on the stage, I see some people who act as if they're about to start a fight. I've been waiting for them to start it for a quarter of an hour now, but nothing happens. They're a bunch of cowards, afraid to do anything except call each other names. I don't know if this is what you call a play, but I do know it is not amusing. You should have brought in some boxers from London or Rotterdam. Then, by God, you'd have seen them knock each other around so hard you could hear it from one end of the hall to the other. But these poor fools here are pitiful. This isn't what I was told I'd see. I was told there was going to be a festival of fools with the election of a pope. We have a pope of fools in Ghent, too, but this is how we do it. We get a big crowd together, like the one that's here right now. Then, one at a time, everybody sticks his head through a hole and makes faces at the others. The one who makes the ugliest face is elected the Pope of Fools. It's very amusing. Why don't we elect your Pope the way we do in my country? At least it won't be as boring as listening to these actors chatter. If they want to come and make faces through the hole along with everyone else, they are welcome. What do you say, citizens? We've got enough ugly faces here to give us some good hearty laughs." Gringoire would have liked to answer him, but he was speechless with surprise, rage, and indignation. Besides, the popular Hosier's suggestion was received with such enthusiasm that any resistance would have been useless. There was nothing left for the poor poet to do but resign himself to being swept along with the tide.